Okay, so today's recipe is a suggestion. I've never had cardamom buns before. I've never made them. But of course you're going to need cardamom for this. You can either get this ground cardamom, which is easier to find, I think. And then you can also get these whole cardamom pods, which I'll show you how to get the cardamom out of those. Also, really quickly, I got a couple suggestions for cinnamon rolls, which in this recipe you can really just replace cardamom with cinnamon and you'll get like fancy cinnamon rolls. Also, you can add a little bit of cloves just for some extra flavor. Okay, and if you're bougie like me and wanted to use the pods, this is what the pod looks like, and then these are the seeds inside. You're just going to put them in a mortar and pestle, or you can crush them with a bowl or some sort of heavy object. A rolling pin might work. And then you're just going to ground them until they look like this small bowl over here. So you don't want them totally into powder, but you want them to be pretty broken up. Basically, you're just going to grind up enough for 3 teaspoons, which is how much you're going to need for this recipe. Alright, what's up? So this recipe calls for 3 different parts. Your first part is going to be your dough, and then your second part is going to be your filling, and then your topping for the buns. So first off, on our ingredients, we have a cup and a splash of hot milk, 2 teaspoons of instant yeast, 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar, 6 tablespoons room temperature butter, and then 3 cups all-purpose flour with 1/2 teaspoon of salt in there. Also keep a cup of flour off to the side for when you need. And then I also have a teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, just to kind of put in the whole recipe for fun. And then, of course, your cardamom that we did before, you're going to have 1 teaspoon in the dough. So your second thing is your filling. It's pretty simple. It's just 5 tablespoons of room temperature soft butter, and then another 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. And then, of course, cardamom seeds. This one calls for 1.5 teaspoons. And then your third part is your topping. So you're going to need 1/4 of a cup of water, 1/4 of a cup of brown sugar, and then a teaspoon of vanilla. And then, of course, our last ingredient is the rest of our cardamom, which we're going to put on top. It'll be about 1/2 teaspoon. And that's all our ingredients. So let's get going on our dough. All right, so here we go with our dough. We have our milk here, into which we're going to add our yeast and then a little bit of our brown sugar and mix that up and make sure it's all incorporated. Now I am using a bowl here. Most recipes call for a stand mixer, but again, I know not everyone has one. It's going to take longer, but it's going to be more fun because we get to knead the dough ourselves. So make sure all your stuff is in your milk mixed up well, and then set that to the side. And then you're going to add in your teaspoon of cardamom into your flour. And then I added in about a teaspoon of that clove and cinnamon mixture. And then you're going to whisk that up a little bit. And then once your yeast has bloomed, which is basically just check, make sure it's foamy. As long as your milk is hot, that should be that way. And then add in your brown sugar and mix that up a little bit. Then wipe off your hands. There you go. In your flour mixture. And then once you've checked your yeast, go ahead and pour it in. And then I just started mixing it with a wooden spoon just to get kind of the flour saturated before I went in with my hands, just so it didn't stick to my hands as bad. And now you can see mixing it up, it's starting to come together. And so now I went in with my hands and I started adding the butter. So I just took a tablespoon of the butter and I split it in half, and then I started folding it into the dough. And so once your dough kind of comes together, you can put it on the worktop. and then start working on there. It's a lot easier to knead it on the worktop. So just keep incorporating your butter a little at a time. Fold it into the dough. It's not an exact science here. Just fold it into the dough a little at a time. You don't want to put it in all at once. So yeah, see, they just fold it over itself. And then you can see I'm going a little faster. It'll get easier and easier as the dough and the gluten come together. Or the gluten in the dough starts to develop. So you don't want to over knead this. I actually may have over kneaded it. But once you're done, oh, it smelled so good, y'all. That cardamom. Okay, so now I'm doing like it's called a heart-shaped knead. It's kind of fun when, I don't know, it's a good workout. You start doing some squats, you know. It takes about 10 minutes, so it's a good killer of time for quarantine days. So, knead away. Okay, now I just punched it down, and then I folded it into a ball, so I'm pulling all the corners in, and then I formed it into a ball, and I put Pam in that bowl, just to keep it from sticking to the bowl, and then just put it seam side down in the bowl, cover it with a tea towel, and then let it rise for about 45 minutes. Alright, well that's rising onto filling. So we have our 5 tablespoons of butter, our 1/3 a cup of brown sugar, and then that cinnamon and clove mix. And then I actually have 1 teaspoon of the already ground powdery cardamom, and then the cardamom that I ground. Because this is supposed to be a paste, and you don't really want it super grainy, so I went ahead and used mostly powder cardamom in this part of it. So go ahead and add your butter and your sugar, and then yeah, I added half a teaspoon of the roughly ground stuff, and then a whole teaspoon of the powdery stuff, and then I did 2 pinches of that cinnamon and clove mix, and then you just mix it up into a paste. And what I actually did here was I tasted it. Always wash your hands after this, but I decided it needed a little salt, because salt really helps bring out that the spices and even the sugar. So I just did a couple pinches of Himalayan sea salt. You can use whatever salt you want, and it just made it better. And then of course I dropped stuff along the way, but there we go. And mix it all together, and it's done and ready for rolling out. Look at that pretty dough. Put down some flour. You're gonna be using, yeah, flour's good. And it's so pillowy, it's so beautiful, it smells amazing. Just put a little flour on top, a little flour in my rolling pin. I hate sticky dough, so here we go. And the face I'm making is because it is as soft as a pillow. I mean, softest dough I've ever rolled out. I think it's all that butter. But yeah, so roll it out into a rectangle, and then just start spreading on your paste. And it'd be better if it looked more like a rectangle. I ended up stretching mine out a bit, and I actually folded it the wrong way first, and then I forgot to film folding it the right way. So I'm just gonna tell you how to do it. So once you get all your filling spread out on there, go ahead and fold it not like a hot dog but a hamburger, but like a Marie Kondo hamburger. So 1/3 of the way up and then over. Basically exactly the way I'm doing it right now, except pull the shorter end in. Alright, and then you can barely see it on the edge of this video, but cut it into kind of maybe 1/2 inch wide strips, and then you can do what I'm showing you right now. I did it in slow motion so you can kind of see. You're just taking one end, wrapping it around your thumb and 2 fingers, and then taking your thumb out and pushing the end in the middle, and that'll make your little knot, or your little bun. So hopefully you understand how to fold it. yeah, the only way I can describe it is to hamburger it three ways instead of one way, if that makes sense. So like a third of the way up, and then fold the top part on top of that, and then kind of roll it out a tiny bit, and then cut it into 1/2 inch strips. Not long ways, but short ways. That's the only way I can describe it. And I'll post the recipe that I roughly followed. So you kind of twist it, and then around my thumb and my 2 fingers, and then take my thumb out, and then put the end in the middle, and that'll give you your little bun shape. And then you put them on parchment paper on a cookie sheet. My strips came out to be, or my buns, I made 16. You can make up to 20 depending on how thin you rolled it. I probably could have rolled mine thinner. So yeah, just, you can watch this over and over again if you're having trouble forming that. And I stretched mine out a little bit before I twisted it, but don't pull too hard because it will break. A couple of mine broke as I was trying to twist them. But again, this is the first time I've made these, so I don't know. It's like a fancier cinnamon roll, and y'all, they're delicious. So I know this is in slow motion, so it's kind of annoying, but I really wanted y'all to be able to see how to twist them. And again, I'll post the site that I used. Like I made her recipe, but then I tweaked it a little bit just because I always do that. But she has a GIF on there, or GIF, however you say it, that shows you how to do it. So, and some pictures of her rolling it out. So that's always good. And here's our finished product. All right, here are all my 16 buns all together. We gotta let them proof before they go in the oven. Watch, I'm gonna try to be Vanna White and a magician at the same time, and it's gonna go horribly wrong. And down, and will they disappear? Now just cover it like a normal person. All right, while your buns are proofing for 30 minutes, go ahead and preheat your oven to 435 degrees, and then you can start on your topping. So you're gonna make a sugar syrup to put on top when they come out of the oven. So put 1/4 cup of water, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and then a teaspoon of vanilla into a medium or small saucepan, really, over medium heat, and just kind of shake it. You don't really need to stir it. And then all it needs to do is come to kind of a little simmer, and then you can turn the eye off because you don't want it to become caramel. And then I have a teaspoon of cardamom, and then a teaspoon of white sugar and a teaspoon of brown sugar, and just mix that up in there. And then I put a little bit of the cinnamon. So now you're going to put it in your oven once it's proofed for 30 minutes. And I did 5 minutes of each one on each rack of the oven because I wanted them to get an even brownness. And once they come out, you're going to put on your syrup, and then sprinkle on your sugar and cardamom. And then, y'all, they're done. They smell amazing. You can eat them right out of the oven. They're like sticky, and they're so good. Like 10 times better than cinnamon rolls. I don't care what anyone says. They're incredible. Thanks for watching, guys. It was so fun to do. And if you want to be the roommate of the year and make your house or apartment smell like a Swedish bakery, this is what you do. They were incredible. It still smells good in the house. And yeah, thank you, Isabel, for the suggestion. I'm missing a lot of you guys, especially you Hattiesburg people. I hope I get to see you soon. At a social distance, of course. You gotta leave room for Jesus and all his disciples. I hope y'all are staying safe, and happy baking.